Welcome. Let's talk about the selection programming structure. A couple videos ago, I introduced all the programming structures and I briefly talked about all three of them. Today, I want to talk a little bit more about the selection programming structure before we actually learn how to implement it and use it in code. So what I said last time was that we have a sequence of statements, right, represented by these blue lines that we have on top of this purple circle. And then we get to the purple circle. And that purple circle, I said that it meant some form of decision. There's a question and we have to make a decision. And based on that decision, we either take the right path or we take the left path. And the way that I said this was that we either answer a yes to this question or we answer no to this question. So if I say yes to this question, I would go to the right. And if I say no to the question, then I would go to the left, right? So one example I had was you are driving, you reach the corner, and you say, do I take a right and go to work, or do I take a left and go to school? Which you take depends upon the answer to this question. Where am I going? Am I going to work? And so I can make the question of, am I going to work? If the answer is yes, then I take the right path. If the answer is no, then I take the left path. And then once we come up with that decision, then we follow another sequence of statements, right? Either we take the right or left, it doesn't matter. And then in the end, we join in, and then we finish off with another sequence of statements. And so the question here, though, is what exactly is this little purple circle? So let's talk a little bit more about that. So I'm going to change the way I draw this purple circle. Actually, I should say the way I draw this decision. And instead of using a purple circle, what I want to say is I'm going to use a shape. And this shape is going to be a purple diamond. So it's going to look something like that. And let me close this right here. Oh, that's imagine that I've drawn that diamond very perfectly. Okay, so instead of using a purple circle, I'm using a purple diamond. And you might wonder why. Well, there's a reason. And all these programming structures, there's a way to draw them as a diagram. And we use shapes in order to represent the different kinds of structures on how we represent certain things. Don't worry about it. I'm going to talk about it in a later video. But for now, just every time that I draw a purple diamond, just think there's a question that implies I need to make a decision. And this decision has to be either a yes, which if it's a yes, I'm going to go to the right. And if it's a no, I am going to go to the left. Now, the key question here is what goes inside the diamond? And what I want you to realize, and maybe you are picking this up by yourself, is that we have two choices, yes and no. Where else have we talked about having two choices? Can you think of one? A Boolean value. A Boolean value, we either have a true or a false, right? True could be the same thing as yes. It is the same thing in a way. You can frame the question in such a way that the answer is true, or you can frame it in such a way that the answer is yes, right? And there's another place where we have also have this two option thing, a bit, right? A bit can either be a 0 or a 1. And non-coincidentally, this is how it works, is that a 0 was the same thing as false, and a 1 was the same thing as true. Well, now a 0 is a false, and it's also a no, which is the left side of this, of this selection. I go to the left as a no. And in terms of the opposite, in a bit we have a 1. In a Boolean we have a true. And in this case, in our selection, we have a yes. So these three are the same thing. And so what I want you to realize from this is that what goes inside of this diamond is a Boolean value. So instead of me putting a question mark here, what I can put is, I should say, put a little arrow here. This is actually going to be a Boolean. So if I say that in this diamond I have a true, my decision comes to the result true, I'm going to take the yes path. So instead of saying just yes, I'm going to say yes or true. And then over here on this side, it's going to be what? False. So what goes inside the diamond is a Boolean. However, if we already know the value of the Boolean, for instance, if I say I'm going to put a true inside of this diamond, why do I need the no path, right? If it's always going to be true, like if you know the answer to this question is true, why would you want to have the no path? Or if you know that the answer, if what goes inside this diamond is going to be a false, why would you want to have the yes path? And so what actually happens here is that we have variables, right? And we can have a Boolean variable. And we might not know what the value of our Boolean variable is. It could be a true for our Boolean, or it could be a false for our Boolean. And depending on what that is, well, that's when we don't know which path we're going to take. And the program, as it executes, as it computes something, is going to come into this purple diamond and say, what do I have here? I have a Boolean variable. Is this thing true or is this thing false? So in the next videos, what we're actually going to discuss is we're going to talk about operators that affect Boolean values. So we talked about arithmetic operators. And the result of an arithmetic operator is what? It's a number. If you add two numbers, you get a number. You multiply numbers, you divide numbers, the increment operator, the modulus operator, all of those operators result in a number. So in the next two videos, we're going to talk about operators that result in a Boolean value. So what goes inside this purple diamond is not just a Boolean value, but an entire Boolean operation, right? So for example, if I ask the question, let's say I'm driving down the street and I come to the corner and I say, should I take the right path or should I take the left path? And let's just suppose, for the sake of this story, that when I take the right path, that's when I'm heading to work. And when I take the left path is when I'm heading to school. So when I come to this decision, I say, do I go to school or do I go to work? And let's say that I want to know if I should head to work. Well, what do you do in your head when you think of this question? What it comes into your head? Should I head to school? Well, you're going to have to ask a couple questions. If it's a Monday, do you work on a Monday? Yes. Okay. Do you work at 8 in the morning? Because right now it's 7:50. You say yes. Okay, well, it's 7:50, 10 minutes before I have to go to work. And it's a Monday, and I work on Monday. Therefore, I should take the yes path. All of that passes through your head very quickly. And that's a Boolean operation, right? We've made a couple of questions, and based on certain criteria, we came up to the conclusion that, yes, we have to take the right path. So in this purple diamond, what we're going to put is we're going to put a Boolean value that it's actually the result of a Boolean operation. In the next two videos, we're actually going to be talking about relational operators, and in the video after that, we're going to be talking about conditional operators. And these two operators are used in particular with Boolean values. And once we figure these two out, we will know what goes inside our purple diamond. And then once we figure that out in the video that follows, we're going to learn how do we write code that mimics this programming structure. How do we code this purple diamond in our code? Now, before you move on to the next video and start watching these relational operators and conditional operators, I want you to do a little exercise. You don't have to work, no homework, you just something for you to do in your head. Everything that comes down into this purple diamond has two choices, yes or no, true or false, whichever you prefer. However, in our everyday life, we ask much more complicated questions. If I say, what is your name? The answer is not yes or no or true and false. It's a combination of letters to form a word, and that word is your name. How would you ask a question where you want to find out what is the name of someone in such a way that you only get a yes or no? If I say, what day of the week is it today? I cannot ask that question, not in this selection programming structure. I can only ask a yes or no question. How would you know what the day of the week is if you only have the option to answer as yes and no? If you had to say, what day of the month is it? What year were you born? Every single question, every time you make a decision throughout your day, throughout your life, in a computer, it has to be broken down into a question that can be either answered as a yes or no, or a set of questions that can be answered by a bunch of yeses and a bunch of nos. Okay? So just ponder in your own time. You know, as you wake up today, if you're watching this, you're already awake. But as you're doing something today, you make a decision. What am I going to eat? Ask yourself the question, how can I come to this conclusion? By simply asking questions that yield a yes or no response and nothing else. If you found this video useful, if you learned something and you don't mind, leave a like. If you're new to this channel, check out the video series, check out the channel. Even if you like what you see, subscribe, be safe, and peace out.